Alright, I got a low voltage situation here. It just kind of dropped off. If you look at my scan gauge here, I'm reading 12.2 volts. And to verify with my truck gauge here, same thing. So that's basically reading the battery voltage. I drove it 50 miles to get it here, and that's as far down as we are, is 12.3 volts. So I got her home here and did some further testing and got a bad alternator. So we're gonna go ahead and change the alternator today. I'll show you quick just a couple real simple checks you can do to kind of verify things. It's not by any means a complete troubleshooting list. It's just a couple simple things you can check here. So let's go outside and I'll show you. First thing I'm going to do is open up the battery box. Just gonna do it real quick, check, verify the battery voltage. I know it's what it is, but you want to know kind of the number what it is. So when you do other checks, you know if there's a change. So take your multimeter here, set it on voltage. Just take your probes and touch them to any old. Just pick a positive and a negative here. I'm reading 12.4 volts at the batteries. So that's with the truck off. Let's go around the front here. Okay, then what I'm going to do up here at the alternator is just check, do a similar check, you know. And I have nearly the same voltage. I'm at like 12.38. So all that does is tell us that we have a good connection from battery to alternator. Basically, no wires are bad in between the two. And next thing I'm gonna do is start the truck. Okay, hopefully you could see that when I started the truck and tested it again, we're still reading, you know, 12.3, 12.4 for voltage. So basically we're just reading battery voltage up here. This alternator's not charging. Now, you know, it also pays to, while you're here, and if you're gonna take this apart and everything, check all your wires, you know, all your connections and everything. But, you know, this alternator's dead. So we're gonna change that. I'm not gonna mess around trying to fix it because this is under warranty. It's 8 months old. All right, so first things first, before we do starter, alternator, you know, electrical stuff, we're gonna disconnect the batteries so we're not arcing out on anything. And we're definitely gonna clean up this connection before we put it back together. I'm just pulling. This is the main ground wire. It just comes over to the frame right here. That one's awful green too. We'll fix that too before we're done. Just for the sake of being extra careful, I'm gonna pull that main positive cable off too. Alright, you can do this in any particular order you want to. One thing we got to do is release the belt. So I got my 1/2-inch bar here. Just have to release the tension on that tensioner pulley. and let her rest there. Okay, sorry for the wind. I hope it's not ruining the audio quality here, but doing the best I can. This is a Detroit Series 60, so this is a pad mount alternator as opposed to a J mount. We got a bolt here, 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 and here for mounting. Okay, I got here is a 1/2-inch ratchet with extension, 3/8 socket. Loosen this one up too while we're here. Oh, wouldn't you know it, positive's a different size. Okay, keep your mounting hardware just in case the new one does not come with it. If you want to verify that you cut the power properly, just, you know, touch it with your multimeter again, make sure she's dead. Okay, the positive terminal here is a 7/16. Washer on there. Okay, then these little wires here. Well, I got the wrong size socket, but it worked anyway. 3/8. Loosen them up. Okay. Washer on there also. Okay, I just pulled all the wires off here, loosen up these mounting bolts. Now these were out not that long ago, and I always put never sees on them, but if yours have been in there for a long time, just go slow and steady so you don't snap one off. You know, if you got to work it back and forth, whatever. You know, even though I know it's not going to break, I still go slow. No reason really to use a power tool. Okay, and this will just slide right out of there. This is what your mount looks like. On a Detroit here, they got some extra holes. So if you want to run a different style alternator, which I tried at one time and I didn't continue to do because it wasn't a heavy duty alternator that couldn't take the pounding, but I thought I'd try it because it was about half the price. This style alternator I have on here is almost $600, and that one was like $200. So I'm just going to put my bolts back in the holes here for the night so that they don't wander off and I lose them, fall somewhere where I can't find them. Then to get this pulley off, we need a 15/16 inch socket here. Buzz it off. These pulleys can come off pretty hard. Yeah. Just using a flathead screwdriver here. There. Pulley's off. This side goes in, the recess side goes out. Now it can happen where these things seize on here and they can be a real bear to get off. I had one once we had to cut and torch and pretty much ruined the alternator trying to get it off, but there was no core anyway. So this is all ready to go back and we'll have the new one tomorrow. Here's our new alternator. Now we're going to use this terminal here to pull it off. You can see we got new hardware on there, which is good. New hardware on these two also down here at the bottom. Good deal. Here's our ground. Everything looks good. I just pushed the pulley on here. We got the nut ready to go. Now, you see in the end there, there's a hole for like an Allen wrench. What you're supposed to do is put an Allen wrench in there and then use a 15/16 wrench to turn this nut. So we can do that, or I'm just gonna buzz it on. I'm not gonna, this is just to run the nut on there. I'm not putting any kind of torque on it. You don't wanna, like when you put this on, you should do it with the alternator horizontal, not up and down, because you don't want to push on this shaft. You want to push on this, you can damage the alternator. So I'm just running this on. I'm not torquing it with this impact. There, I have it on. Now, a lot of people will just bump this tight with the impact. If you're comfortable doing that, that's perfectly fine. I just like to take my manual torque wrench. It says, it should say on your fan here, probably can't read that, shaft nut torque 70 to 80 foot-pounds. It also says in the instructions. So I'm just gonna go grab my manual torque wrench and put that kind of torque on here. This is another reason to save an old belt. You know, it's hard to hold this with your hand. Throw an old belt on there and clamp down on it with a big pair of pliers to keep that from spinning, so that you can put your manual torque wrench on here. Makes it a heck of a lot easier. Some people just, you know, jam a screwdriver into the fan here to keep it from turning. You don't want to damage this alternator's $500 and some. Don't damage it, you know. Just put a belt on here and clamp down, an old belt, clamp down on it. Tighten up your torque, then we'll be ready to put it on the truck. There. You can see I got the alternator mounted on here. I got 3 bolts on. Just wanted to show you on the last one. And Annie sees it up good. And then put her in here. Now, while I was away, I took sandpaper and a wire brush and I cleaned all these connections up good. Also cleaned the ones on the battery. And then when we're all done here, I'm going to show you how to just do some quick tests and make sure everything's charging again the way you want it to. And then you saw on the old one, over at the smaller terminals, I had a lot of corrosion. We're going to put some protectant spray on there, designed for that kind of stuff to keep that corrosion down. Now on these, hand tighten them and snug them up good. You don't want to strip them out, otherwise you'll have to retap the holes. While this is off, take a look at your holes. Make sure the threads aren't all boogered up. You can clean them out. I had just done that a few months ago, so my holes were good. But yeah, don't reef on it. Just snug them up and then, you know, tighten them up good. That's part of the reason I don't use a power tool, because I don't want to strip the holes out. Now we got to here to where we can put the belt on. Now you'll know if you put this pulley on backwards, your belt's not going to align properly properly, it's going to not stick out the proper amount of distance here. You'll know right away, just stand back and look at it. You'll be able to tell it's out of alignment. Now, make sure your belt didn't slip off any of the other pulleys. Make sure it's centrally aligned on everything here. It's good up here. So now we can start hooking up these electrical connections. I just zip tied these out of the way so it's easier to work. Not snagging wires and stuff. I also cleaned up the connections back at the battery. And then I'm going to spray those also. You can see that one nut and washer stays on. These ones came with it, they'll come off. So before you start this project with your old one, take a picture of it in case you're unsure of how your wiring goes. Then you just gotta put it back on the way it came off. But this is our positive terminal, and we can really just hook these up in any order we want, and it doesn't have to be a particular order. Okay, this is going to take a 7/16. Now you see this is a big 1/2 inch ratchet I'm using, but it's just a small terminal, so keep in mind the kind of force you got here, and not to tighten it up so tight you snap it off or something. In fact, we'll finish it with a hand wrench just so we know how tight it is. That's pretty tight. So we're nice and good there. Now here's your negative. Or your ground. It's a 3/8. Now some alternators may not come with this ground terminal here. What you can do, this hole is the same size as one of your mounting bolts. If you have to, if you absolutely have to, you can ground it. Just put it on a bolt before you put it through the hole. You can ground it right to the housing there. That's basically all you're doing here. No big thing. Okay. There is a washer on there. It's a lock washer. Same thing here. Not tight enough so that you're going to strip it out or anything. You want to compress that lock washer. Now if you remember right, I did cut this end off and put a new, the terminal that was on there was not a heat shrink, and I want a heat shrink to keep the salt from getting in there. Once again, these are tiny. Good enough. Our connections are made here. Everything is on and it's tight. Got our belt on. Let's just look from the side here. Make sure your belt is still in alignment. Okay, pulley's on right. We know. I'm going to hook up the batteries and we will start this, and I'll show you how to just verify that things are charging correctly. Alright, so I just started the truck. You can see we're charging good there on that gauge. There's my scan gauge. That's a little high voltage. it'll settle. It's a brand new alternator. It's just it'll settle down here in a few seconds. But let's go outside, and I'm gonna just show you how to verify that, you know, if you don't have a scan gauge. I like to not always just trust one gauge. We want to, you know, verify everything. Show you how to do that. So take and set your multimeter voltage, 20 volts. And I'm going to just touch the red to the positive, and then we're going to ground this one. See what our voltage is now. Remember before, when the alternator was dead, it wasn't charging. We were only reading battery voltage at, I remember, 12.5 volts or so. Okay, you can see that the alternator was charging now at 14.9 volts. That voltage is pretty high. We don't want it to run at that, but I'm going to give it a few minutes here because these batteries were about dead from running it with no alternator. I'm just going to give it a little bit here and run it, see if that voltage kind of calms down a little bit here. And also, I want to check it back here at the batteries to make sure the volt, remember back here we were reading, you know, just battery voltage at 12.5 volts. Now with the truck running and the alternator charging, we should be reading really close to what the alternator is putting out. So yes, we know the charge is making it back here to the battery. Our wiring's got, you know, is not broken or anything. So let's shut the truck off and move on to something else. All right, I don't know if you could hear me over the truck running, but what we did was just verify voltage here to make sure the thing's charging. And then I went back by the batteries to verify the charge is making it back to the batteries, you know, show that our wiring is good and everything. We don't have a problem there. And everything is good. You should be within a couple tenths of a volt from here back to the batteries when you test. So like I said, the voltage is a little higher than what we want, but I've seen it before where, you know, you put a brand new alternator on, just let it run for a little bit, just let it work itself out, and a lot of times it'll settle down. So it should be just fine. If it's not, I'll come back and we'll figure that out. But I'm just going to use some terminal protector here. Like in the old one, we had really bad corrosion, especially between these two, and on the positive. So I'm just gonna, I didn't spray these right away because in case we had to take it back apart or had to return it or something, there wouldn't be spray all over it. And it should be red. There, kind of made a mess. I'll wipe it up, but that helps keep corrosion down then too. That's all. Everybody's got a different way to do things. This is just mine. So if I did something different than you do it, hey, the job still got done. We're good. And you know, not everybody's got the same tools. Use what you got. And a lot of times this is a job you can do right in a truck stop parking lot if you have to. Only snag you might run into is getting this pulley off. Sometimes they can be a real bear to get off, but not always. So if you like these kind of videos, hit that like button and subscribe. We'll see you next time.